Hey guys, it's Ashley from Heavenly Hills Homestead, and today we're going to be doing a ton of sourdough baking. We're going to be making our regular sandwich bread loaves that we like to have on hand. We're also going to be doing a bunch of baking for our church's missions auction.
Actually,
Yep, you're going to be there. Our missions auction at church, which is this weekend, and we're going to be auctioning off all sorts of great things. And we are making a bunch of sourdough artisan bread loaves to go and be auctioned off, and we're making a bunch of Parker House rolls and honey butter. So come along with us and we'll show you how it's done. Good job. High five. Okay, so first I am starting out with the second rise for the artisan loaf that I had prepped the night before. This is just for one artisan loaf. It's already done its first rise overnight, so I'm just prepping it for its second rise, kneading it into a nice ball, and then putting it in the Banneton basket. After it's in the basket, I put it in a warm spot to rise. And for the next recipe, I am going to be making some more artisan sourdough loaves to go for the missions auction. I got this recipe from the Prairie Homestead, and it's a really great, very easy recipe to use. The only change that I've made is that I use a stand mixer instead of doing it by hand the way that she does it in her video, but I just do that because I find it easier, and my stand mixer is a workhorse. So after that dough was ready, my toddler helped me to just put it in a glass bowl and cover it with saran wrap. She loves tasting the dough, and it's perfectly safe for her to be tasting it. After it's all ready, then I put it in a nice warm spot and start on the next batch of bread here. So now I am starting our sourdough sandwich loaves. We love this recipe. It is adapted from the Farmhouse on Boone whole wheat sourdough sandwich bread recipe. I've made a few changes for our own taste. We prefer to not use whole wheat flour on this recipe. We prefer just the organic all-purpose flour, and I'm using the flour that I got from Azure here. I also am using the honey that I got from Azure here, and the coconut oil I got from Azure. So yeah, it is a great recipe. It makes 2 loaves, and we go through about 2 loaves a week of this one. after that dough was ready, I just put it in its own glass bowl and set it in a warm spot, and then I set sticky notes on top so I wouldn't mix up which recipe was which. Now I am starting on my sourdough Parker House rolls. I got this recipe from the Homesteading family. It is a great recipe and I have not changed it at all, actually. It is a tried and true, absolutely fantastic recipe. And it has made me quite famous among our friends and family and our church for sourdough. So yeah, I'm just getting the buttermilk and the butter portion of that ready, and then I will do the sourdough and flour portion. Now I'm just adding the rest of the ingredients into my stand mixer. As you can see here, I totally spilled an egg all over the counter, so I'm just cleaning that up real quick. These eggs are from our chickens that finally started laying eggs again, thank goodness. So we are back in eggs, which is fantastic. And then after I got all the liquid portion of this recipe mixed together in my stand mixer, I quickly realized that I was not going to fit all of everything in my stand mixer because I quadrupled this recipe to make it work with how much I needed. So I did the liquid portion here, and then you'll see that I hand kneaded the rest of it in just a big bowl. One thing that I have learned with sourdough is that it's different than other bread making. It's not an exact science where every single time you're going to add the exact same amount of flour and the exact same amount of water. It's different each time, and you really have to learn how to read the dough and feel the dough and know what feels good, what looks good, to get consistent results. So even though it was a total workout to hand knead this much dough, it was good because I had my hands in it and I was feeling it, and I could feel exactly what the hydration was and when it was ready to move on to the next step. And it's not as complicated as it seems, really. You know, it seems like it might be really complicated to figure out, okay, how is dough supposed to feel and how is it supposed to look and all of that. But after a few times, you pick it up pretty quick. And after a couple years of doing sourdough like I have, you really get it down packed. Phew, so we got all of our dough set and it is in a warm spot rising, and now it's time to replenish my sourdough starter and get it fed so that I can use it again. Last night, in preparation for doing all of the baking today, I transferred my sourdough to a bigger 1-gallon jug, and I had just enough to get all the baking that I needed to get done, and there's a little bit left in the bottom, so I'm gonna transfer it to a normal size jar for what I keep my sourdough in and get it fed so that we can use it again tomorrow. Going to bake my first artisan loaf. I just turn it over onto parchment paper and cut my little design in it. Some people get really fancy with their designs and have fancy tools and all of that. I do not. I just use a sharp knife and try to keep it simple. The few times that I've tried to put fancy little designs in my bread, it has not looked very good. So now I'm starting on the next portion for these Parker House rolls, and that is just divvying it up into the little roll-sized pieces. And with this much dough, it was kind of a tedious job, but it was also sort of relaxing and repetitive, which was really nice. I'm doing 6 pans of rolls, and it ended up being perfect because 12 rolls fit in each individual pan, so that will be wonderful for whoever ends up buying these at the auction. And in the middle of everything, I'm just working on baking up that bread. And my rolls are rising. I'm letting that artisan loaf cool. And then after those rolls are done rising, I slathered them in copious amounts of butter before baking them. So it is the next day. I ran out of time and I ran out of bowls to proof dough in, but I was able to manage to make 6 batches of the sourdough Parker House rolls. I was able to do 3 loaves of my sourdough artisan bread, and I was able to do 2 loaves of my sourdough sandwich bread yesterday. So today I still have a few more loaves of bread I want to make, and I'm going to make all of the honey butter to go with the Parker House rolls. And the honey butter is the magic that makes these rolls fantastic. These rolls are great by themselves, but the honey butter is what's made me famous for these rolls. I can't take any credit for any of the bread recipes in this video, but I can take credit for this honey butter recipe. And of course, in true fashion of how I like to cook, it's not exact measurements, but I'll show you how to make it. So come along. So for the honey butter recipe, it is all by taste. It is butter, honey, and salt until it tastes good, basically. We like ours with a pretty sweet flavor and just enough salt to give it kind of a rounded flavor, not just sweet and fat. It kind of hits that perfect note in your mouth. I don't know how else to describe it, but basically what I do is I just add a bunch of butter and a pinch of salt and a tablespoon of honey here and there until it tastes right. I normally do smaller batches and will mix it just in a regular bowl with my hand mixer, but because I was doing such a big batch here, I did it with my KitchenAid stand mixer. So, and it took a little bit to kind of whip it into submission, but after it started getting smooth and creamy, then it was great. Okay, so now that all the honey butter is whipped up and well blended, well mixed, and it tastes great, I'm going to put some in jars and have it to go with all of the Parker House rolls that are going to be auctioned off at our church for the missions auction. This is shelf stable for a little bit. Honestly, this honey butter is so good. It's not going to last for very long, so it's going to do perfectly fine sitting on the counter or in a cupboard just like your normal butter, because all the ingredients in it are shelf stable ingredients: salt, honey, and butter. Oh, thank you. I was made a block tower. You can, if you wanted to, put it in the fridge. I've done that before. It does harden up just like butter would in the fridge, but it's still great and tastes great. But most often it's not gonna last long enough to stick around. So yeah, I just put it in a jar and have it to go with the rolls, and it is delicious. My husband loves it so much, he actually says that it tastes like ice cream. So yeah, next time you make rolls, or if you make these Parker House roll recipe, you gotta have the honey butter with it. Really, any bread with the honey butter is fantastic. Alrighty, so we finally finished our day and a half of sourdough baking, and let's show you what we got. So here on the wood stove that is not running, I have all of the goodies that I've made in the last 2 days. I've got my 2 loaves of sandwich bread. This is our sourdough sandwich bread, and we love this. We go through about 2 loaves this size per week. I have 2 loaves and then 2 more coming of my sourdough artisan bread. Got the honey butter back there, and then I have 6 of the sourdough Parker House rolls, and I did leave these a little bit less browned. They're slightly browned, but a little bit less browned, so that whenever whoever buys them at the auction wants to serve them, they can just warm them up and they'll just finish browning and top them with the honey butter, and that's it. So I really hope you enjoyed this video of a super sourdough baking day and a half. I did a ton and I used a bunch of flour, but it's all for a good cause and it all was a lot of fun. My toddler got to help me, and it kept me on my feet and in the kitchen for a while, so it was a lot of fun. If you like this video, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to comment below and tell me what you want to see on the channel in the near future. And until next time, welcome to the homestead.